So as you know, it's been 3 weeks since update Seek and Destroy was released. In the past 3 weeks, I've played nothing but Air RB, trying to get the new aircraft and finish up the new Benelux line for France. Discarding the 250 matches I played with 10.3 vehicles, the game says I've played around 520 matches of 13.0 Air RB. From my time playing this tier, I've picked up on a lot of important things when it comes to the state of Air RB at top tier, which is currently 13.0, but not for long. We'll go through them one by one in this video and also discuss the massive decompression and stock weapon overhaul the game is planning to introduce soon. After which, I can probably provide some tips to enhance or probably enjoy ARH gameplay without pretty much burning out from being salty. When it comes to the implementation of Fox 3s, there's been a great equalization of sorts. Of course, each missile has its own properties and performance, but they generally only matter in medium-range BVR engagements. A good 90 to 95% of my kills are achieved below the minimum abort range and even within the no-escape zone of my missiles. When you launch at a range of like 12 kilometers or lower at a head-on, even the R-77 or Derby can get sure kills. Of course, there are factors that come into play that affect the efficiency of each plane in getting kills, which I will discuss later. In an engagement where both planes shoot at each other at the same time within their no-escape zone, they will always trade, so both aircraft will definitely get kills. Perhaps the exception to this case would be the Mirage 2000 and the Maika EM that can abuse its thrust vectoring to hit targets while already halfway to a notch. Contrast this to pre-Seek and Destroy days where if you were heading on an Su-27 or MiG-29 with an F-16C or F-15A, you were most likely to lose even if the Su-27 or MiG-29 launched later, just because the R-27ER is that much faster than the AIM's 7M. At least with ARH, if you die first, but you still get a shot off, you can still conceivably kill whoever fired at you provided they keep their bearing. With Fox 3 missiles, all being above 30 Gs, there's also no considerable handicap among each nation when it comes to the maneuverability of missiles. 30 G is already incredibly difficult to evade. 40 G and 50 G missiles are just kind of putting a hat on a hat. Currently, the AAM-4 is the lowest overload among the ARH missiles at 32G, but even at that, I've had no difficulties using the F-15JM at 13.0. With medium-range missiles, dogfights have become somewhat uncommon at 13.0. Out of 500 matches I've played, I've only gotten to a dogfight a handful of times. Of course, don't misconstrue not having dogfights with not using your IR missiles. I've still had plenty of occasions to use my IR missiles. I've also noticed that ARH missiles kick off the psychological effect on players where they see a missile diamond and just take it, believing it to be an ARH, and they can do nothing about it at 5 kilometers. I've certainly had head-on IR missile kills because the target simply refused to flare. I've been killed by IR missiles in a head-on because my instinct kicked in and I went for the notch and chaff instead of flaring. Splitting the keybinds for chaff and flare release also contributed to this psychological effect. But I'm being clear, I'm not saying chaff and flare keybind splitting is bad. It's just a contributor to the weird psychological effect of treating every missile that's coming to you as an ARH. It really is just far more beneficial to take out your opponent from afar instead of trying to get them in a dogfight. Primarily because 16v16 matches don't offer much room for dedicated dogfighting unless you're the last two on your respective teams. The death of the dogfight doesn't affect AMRAAM slingers much. In fact, they probably brought this on into the game. The only issue is if you're not an AMRAAM slinger at that battle rating. Currently, aircraft like the Jas 39A, for example. The Gripen A in the Swedish tech tree is hard locked to Sky Flashes and RB-74M missiles at 12.7. This is the same battle rating as a Tornado F3 Late that has 4 AMRAAMs. It's higher than the AV-8B Plus with also 4 AMRAAMs, and the J8F with 2 PL-12s. Though in the J8F's case it's kinda alright since it's not a particularly stellar fighter, and Python 3's at 12.3 isn't that overpowered. I mean, the Nets doesn't even get the benefit of Fox 3's, or more countermeasures which it should have. Generally, there's no benefit to having IR missiles over Fox 3's in most situations. Having 8 AMRAAMs on an F-15 or all 6 Fox 3's on F-16s and MiG-29 SMTs is very justifiable. But it's always better to have both, like in the case of the SE-27, Gripen, Mirage, and Tornado. An IR missile can definitely save you in a pinch if it has to, but you can always tailor your playstyle to fit your loadout. If that means playing passively at standoff distances, there's always something you can do to get the most out of your matches without compromising something for another playstyle. I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't you just say in the last one that the dogfight is dead? So why are you saying that the airframe matters in Fox 3 matches? They matter for many reasons. The first reason is that matches at that BR rely on good positioning to 1. Avoid the initial BVR slinging at altitude, and 2. Be in a position where they can't see you either by radar or physically. When I play 13.0 or generally most jet matches, I fly to the left side of the map or to the right in the case of Pyrenees, and climb to just before the contrail altitude, so around 5,700 meters down to 5,500. I notch if a missile is on its way to me and continue until I'm just about on their side of the map and I start turning into the middle. That's when the team mostly starts confronting each other. At that point, most of the high altitude players have died out or dived down, so there's at least one or a few still up there that you can just track with their contrails. Another reason is that missile performance is also dependent on the launch platform. The AMRAAM is launched at the same speed as the launch platforms and is boosted up from there. If an F-15 can launch an AMRAAM of 1500 kph, that makes a huge difference in energy compared to an AMRAAM launch at 1100 kph from a Harrier or an F-4F ICE. Missile kinematics also make it easier for missiles to gain energy at higher altitudes, so aircraft can go fast at high altitudes will also give an advantage over those that can't. The discrepancy isn't that evident in close-up fights, but it's noticeable sometimes when you and the teammates near you go for one specific target. Whoever has a speed advantage and altitude advantage will often have their missile hit first. As long as the missile travels arguably the same distance, because obviously if the missile is closer to the target, the closest missile will hit the aircraft first. The third and final reason is defensive maneuvers. A Gripen, Mirage 2000, F-15, F-16, or SE-27 won't have that much trouble going for the notch to avoid missiles, but an F-4 or Harrier will easily lose their energy and struggle to regain it, which makes following up shots difficult. Likewise, a plane that isn't very maneuverable like the Tornado F-3 Late will struggle to go defensive if he's put on the spot in a head-on. While the introduction of Fox 3s have closed the gap between Generation 3 and Generation 4 fighters, there is still an existing gap between their capabilities just out of that raw defensive capability. I was able to grind out the AV-8B with the F-16C, the Basme Chupar with the Barak 2, the Tornado and Char with the South African Gripen, the Su-27SM with the MiG-29 SMT, and the F-16AM with the Mirage 2000. This is because these were aircraft that I had already previously grinded out in previous updates that I just dropped GE to get their Fox 3s. But if you were starting from stock or grinding out with a plane that has no Fox 3 missiles at all, you are going to struggle. I figured Gaijin wouldn't put Fox 3s on the Swedish A Gripen, so when the C Gripen dropped, I just used the J35D I had talisman since 2021 to grind out the C Gripen. This is the same case with the F4 FKWS. I used my MiG-21 MF because it was really far easier to play 10-3 to grind it than to try to use some nation's ranked 8s to grind out the new aircraft. I mean, if I used the MiG-29G, I would probably struggle as much as I did, which is just unnecessary. I mean, of course, I'll still try to play the MiG-29G, but I don't see myself grinding with it. There's really just an inherent advantage to having Fox 3s, especially with multipath down to 60 meters now. I told you all it would be really annoying to hug the ground with 60-meter multipath and all the F4S, MiG-23ML, F4JUK, Mirage F1C200 players taking Phoenixes and AMRAAMs to the face, just rushing to bases are testament to that. Even Gaijin noticed this inherent gap between these aircraft and decided to give stock aircraft 2 Fox 3s on top of getting stock IRCCM missiles. To be expected next week, so if you have your aircraft stock bully for you, the grind will be a bit easier. If you grind it out to the bone from the start of the update to today or spent GE outright instead of a talisman, bully for you again because at least you have a spaded vehicle right now. Your suffering at least paid off, but at least we're making it easier for other players that are just getting there now. Forget sudden maneuver wing rips. Gaijin already fixed that. Forget wonky TWS. That's been fixed. No, the most common way to die in 13.0 is an enemy 5 kilometers in front of you suddenly launching a missile in your direction, but you see the missile first before the launch platform. Sure, it's fine if it were an IR missile, just pop flares and you're good. But if at 5 kilometers someone launches an AMRAAM at you, you're dead. Couldn't even fight back because you didn't see it coming until it was too late. TWS is also not a good way to look for targets that aren't at your height because TWS locks your radar elevation towards the azimuth where it detected its first targets. So to get the TWS elevation to reset, you need to switch modes and back and point it at the area you want to search again. It's doable, very tedious, and it's pretty much impossible to do in a time crunch situation. Like, imagine a Gaijin quick time event and it's just you fiddling with your radar to get an AMRAAM off. Instead, you have to do it in like half a second. Yeah, Gaijin quick time events are pretty brutal. Not to mention you could be scanning an entirely different area from where the bandit is coming from. In 16v16 matches, enemies can come from anywhere and you can always take a missile from somewhere you never saw coming. Su-27s are also notorious for sending R-27 ETs at a distance to gank preoccupied fighters because reliance on RWR has skyrocketed for very obvious reasons. Part of the psychological effect I talked about earlier on in this video. I think spotting should be raised to at least 10 kilometers. 6 kilometers is the NEZ for like all the Fox 3s, and I'm being pretty generous with that because 10, 11, I've pretty much had a high chance of kills. And from here on, it'll just get better. You will have stuff like the AIM-120C5, R77-1. So being a free kill because you can't see what's coming for you is somehow very unfair because you can do everything right, but the spotting system will just screw you over. Plus there's the penalty for spotting below you, which reduces your spotting range. In this update, honestly, I've detected more ground huggers with the radar than the actual spotting system. Now that we have Fox 3 aircraft, the game can comfortably advance to newer aircraft like the F-18, F-15E, Su-34, Su-30, and Su-35. We can already even have the Su-33 as it never actually carried R-77s. The F-14D may or may not get AMRAAMs as it did test it, but I think Gaijin will be just putting it up as a premium I hope not, but it'd still be nice to have an F-14D with AIM-9Ms and AIM-54Cs. But anyway, China can get the Taiwanese Mirage 2000-5 EI, and what I believe to be a late variant of the F-16A Block 20 with AMRAAMs, targeting pods, newer Mavericks, and GPUs. On the PLAAF side of the Chinese tech tree, we might finally have our first J-10 variant, or the J-11B with Chinese ordnance like the PL-12. Italy's F-16A ADF should also have AMRAAMs and AIM-9LI. Israel is still waiting for its F-16C, and the Bazmishupar might receive the Python 4 in the future before the Sufa and the Ra'am arrive. As for Germany and Britain, there's the Eurofighter left unless Germany gets a sub-tree. While Sweden per se doesn't have much for the foreseeable future except for the Vig and D getting AMRAAMs, the Finnish side of the tree can still wait for a Super Hornet. Japan will have to wait for a while when they introduce AESA radars so that they can get the Mitsubishi F2. From here on, we'll probably just have incremental upgrades to the Fox 3s that aircraft carry, like AIM-120Cs for existing aircraft, R-77-1 for Russian aircraft. Though, I think stuff like the Meteor, which are far crazier, might not be that close. We'll probably have to wait for 5th gen fighters to have Meteors. Though we could probably have slower, not really slower because it's pretty much hypersonic, less maneuverable ARH like the Phoenix that we already have. We'll have the Soviet counterparts from the MiG-31 Foxbat. Foxhound? I forgot, but MiG-31. It'll have some of those R-37s and whatnot. With Gaijin announcing decompression of up to 13.7 battle rating plus stock Fox 3's, ARB will start becoming more playable as the barriers to entry for top tier are going to be somewhat lower. That, on top of Gaijin reducing modification RP requirements for end-of-the-line vehicles, it makes the grind a bit easier at top tier now. Of course, stacking vehicles at certain BRs will create black holes anyway, so there will still be vehicles that are going to be unplayable, like the F4J and F4S because it's now within the BR range of the Gripen A and MiG-29G. The EJ Kai is also going up to the battle rating of the top Fox 3 slingers when it goes to 12.7. Decompression is nice, if done right, but currently a lot of vehicles seem to start seeing vehicles that they currently aren't fighting. Plus, in the case of the F-104G for Italy, it just becomes obsolete as it goes to the exact same battle rating as the F-104S. Since I have confidence in BVR combat and hugging the ground is not preferable for me, what I do every match is turn left and go for a wide flank. Sometimes it can be map boundaries, like in Mysterious Valley, but generally just a grid square or two from center and stay at 5,700 to 5,500 meters, as contrails appear at 5750 on most maps or 5700 on cooler maps. Then just proceed to their side of the map and start turning in. I set my radar to the widest TWS scan available for the aircraft and 74 km range setting, 93 kilometers on the Mirage 2000. I keep cycling targets until I find a suitable candidate to shove an AMRAAM down their throat. I abuse HMD and ACM below 16 kilometers or 10 kilometers if you're flying a Sukhoi. Stay high, so they had to give up their 60 meter altitude to lock you, and your missile won't just net you a critical hit from splash damage. This way I can save my Fox 3s for sure hits instead of gambling with medium range BVR combat. Sometimes I do get hits out from further out ranges, but they're getting sensory overload or they really weren't maneuvering at all. This strategy works for me 90% of the time. At least I can get 2 to 4 kills, sometimes 5 to 7 on a very populated lobby. Your teammates will get kills early on, but you can get your own kills later on with a good chance of making it to the end, which should get you more RP because RP is participation based. Time in battle is very, very crucial to getting RP. It's not getting killed sometimes, it's just the time you spend in battle. Though my advice usually can be summed up in just something simple: go with what works. This is the one that works for me. If you have a different tactic that works for you, you're better off with that tactic that you are comfortable with. Ultimately, it's your experience, and however you want it done is what you should ultimately go with. I'm just here to provide advice to those who don't really understand how to play top tier, and give them insight and suggestions on how they could possibly maneuver the murky waters of 13.0. The introduction of advanced medium-range ARH missiles to the game has really shifted the playing field. New tactics, new gameplay, new strategies are being developed by players. With this major breakthrough in tech, we can expect more of these in the future updates, with more aircraft with these weapons arriving in the game. Some people say AirRB is ruined. I really can't say that right now, though I wouldn't say no to better game modes or better game mechanics for AirRB. But anyways, thanks for watching. If you want to hang out with me and other people discussing AirRB, posting memes, or just have unhinged War Thunder chat to drop in my Discord, please feel free to join my Discord server. Links in the description and at the end of this video. Anyways, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video if you'd like to share this to other people. Thank you for watching. This is Dr. MD, and as always, Godspeed.